Hey, what's up everyone, and welcome to this week's installment of the Fabricator Series Segments, where every single week I upload one more chapter, sometimes two, of how to build a tube chassis front end, which is demonstrated on this S13. So, if you are not subscribed already to the Fabricator Series YouTube channel, absolutely go down right now and push that button so you don't miss the next week's uploads. If you're not familiar with the Fabricator Series, head over right now or after this video to the fabricatorseries.com, and there you'll find the build blogs on how to build a tube chassis front end, where each week there will be another episode posted, and in there you can get onto the discussion of everything, ask questions, talk about it amongst everybody else, and all kinds of other good stuff. There's also a lot of great stuff for you to learn while you're over there. You can also check up on facebook.com/thefabricatorseries. There's always another upload, another update, something else going on, and I'm also a big fan of Instagram, so head over to Instagram at the.fabricator. Check all the information below here, and I'll have all of that there. If you need to get a hold of me, send a message, drop a comment, drop me an email, do whatever you gotta do, and I always try to get back to you. So without any further delay, here's this week's episode of how to build a tube chassis front end. Just about all of the sheet metal work is finished above, we need to start working down below. Since we V-mounted the AC condenser, we already have the diffuser plate above, which is going to kick the air as soon as it comes through and deflect it and turn it toward the radiator. And of course the dimple dies in the holes above will allow heat to escape during moments of idle. Now, one question I receive a lot is, how do you get certain complex shapes or different patterns of sheet metal when you're ready to start cutting and forming some ductwork? Now, the answer to that one is a process called templating. Now, when you make the template, you use something like a construction paper such as this to design the areas that you need to do and stick it all together, and then transfer that one onto a piece of sheet metal which will match the exact design of what you need. We're going to go over that right now. Now, with this side complete, you can see the AC condenser installed will allow a lot of that air to actually deflect and not escape out of the side of it. So the idea here is to create this pattern which must mount to all of the tubes and the chassis itself, and also go above into this section here. So to get this crazy contour and this shape out of one piece of metal, we're going to cut a template out of some construction paper, which will allow us to transfer this design onto a piece of sheet metal. So to make matters just a little bit easier here, or at least getting our general sizes and shapes and designs and everything like that, we're going to have to start with basic size of what we're going to work with here. So I know that this first piece is going to have to wrap around and go through here and whatnot. And we can cut as many pieces as we want to actually fill in this area here on the template itself. Because when you actually take it apart, you just transfer it onto the sheet metal, it's all together and everything's copacetic and ready to roll. So what we're going to do is start with a basic size here. Looks like I'm going to run with about a 9-inch piece by, let's just overshoot it, we'll go about 12 inches on it. So a 9 by 12 piece, we're going to cut that out onto a piece of construction paper, and then we'll stick it up here and start running all this on here. Okay, so this is the construction paper we're working with. You can get it at just about any arts and crafts store, grocery store, national chain, whatever the case is. You can get it just about anywhere. It's very pliable, very workable, very plentiful, if you will. So in the event that you don't have the right design, whatever the case is, you can simply crumple it up, toss it in recycling, and try again. So we're going to start with our initial measurement here, 12 inches by 9 inches. And we'll just kind of, we can wing it here. It's not crucial that it's perfect, so we'll just draw a couple of lines here. Get an idea of what we're working with. A whole lot, usually in templating, a lot of this is going to have to come off anyway, so it doesn't really matter all that much. Take our scissors here, just slice this out real quick, and we'll have our initial design. Now when we slide this in here, of course, we're going to see right off the get-go it's way too big, and that's okay. What we want to do is kind of see if we can just slide it in here, hold it up in a general location. You know, it's not extremely crucial that it lines up just right, but what I'm looking to do here is at least get it lined up on the inside here. I want it to go halfway across this tube here. And of course we're going to cut it off right here and mark it out at this point, which is halfway across this tube. So to help hold it in place here, we'll just use some pieces of tape. Masking tape, of course, you can get that anywhere. Nothing big. Nothing too difficult to find. And we'll want to make sure that it gets held down quite nicely to the chassis. So, you know, make sure that you don't have any grease, oils, anything like that. Just kind of hanging out on there so the masking tape won't stick and it won't hold your design. So what I'm going to do is take my marker, and right off the get-go, since we're interfering with this light right here, I kind of want to trace the back side of that out and kind of see if we can get a good idea of where it's going to be cut at. So I'm just going to go around to the back side here and make just a basic trace design of it. Real easy to do. And after we get that cut out, take our tape off here, turn that around, you can see where the interference was on that one. So we'll just slice that out real quick. And it's a little more crucial that I get it lined up right where I want it this time. So that right there, obviously we have a great way of getting around that. And then I'm going to come up here, mark my center line right here, right on that face line, because I want exactly half of the sheet metal to come over at the center or the top section of this tube and be tangent to it. So we'll just we'll draw straight down there. That'll be all right. Cut this off. And we'll line this up again and put a piece of tape right there just to hold it all in place nicely. You see, we're starting to get a form here. We're starting to get exactly what we need to do. So now we can start working on the bottom section of it to get this to not, sit all kinds of funky and whatnot. It's a little too long, and that's just fine. So I'm going to start by just kind of marking out right here, not to cut too much off, and then we'll take it off of here and just kind of get a general idea of all about how long it's going to be. We can square it, whatever the case is. So this is where I like to have just a little bit more accuracy than before. Take a measurement here. That's at 1.25 inches, so I'll measure up 1.25 inches over here. Measure up 1.25 inches there. And we'll just kind of play connect the dots here, Just about like that. Grab my scissors and slice that off. Sometimes as I'm sitting here doing templating and whatnot, I slice up this construction paper here, and I really wish the sheet metal was that easy. It'd be so nice if it was. So we'll stick this back on the car real quick. Again, hold it up right about where I wanted it. Throw our tape back down there, make sure it stays nicely. You have some wiggle room here. Just make sure that it goes right where you want it to go. Now some designs, some contours, they're a little difficult to work with, whatever the case is. Construction paper doesn't always want to cooperate, but that's all right. You just kind of wing it, because once you actually have the sheet metal and you start forming it, things will change up just a little bit. So stick this down here. Hold that pretty close to where it needs to be. I'm going to trace the contour on the back side of this batch bar tube. Take the marker here, and I want to hold this up here as close as possible to the design and whatnot. I'm going to take the marker and really kind of stick it inside of there and get as close to that contour as possible. Now if you run it perpendicular to the tube, you'll end up noticing that you have way too much material left over of it. So we're just going to kind of like really stuff it up inside of there. I'll get a couple of different designs here, then my eyes, and when I start trimming it with the scissors, I can decide pretty much how much I want on there. So we'll take this off of here and trim it off. And we'll toss it back on. Let's see how close we are. We're going to line up once more. Pretty close. Pretty close to where I want to be. So you notice we still have lots of leftover material, and I don't necessarily want to contour all of this over with the hammer and bang it all in there. So we're going to trim off a little bit more, and this is kind of a little more dependent on our eyeballs to make sure that we get this right. But we'll take the marker and go from the front side. I'm just going to kind of hold it up here and we'll undercut it, but I'll see if I can trace this radius out nicely. See how close I can get here. Again, this is just construction paper, so if I'm way off on this one and I can't get it to line up at the end of the day, you know what? Forget it. Toss it in the recycling, try again. You can do this as many times as you want. Construction paper is extremely cheap. It's like $1 for a sheet or something like that. It's very affordable. It's a lot less expensive than trying to do this with a piece of sheet metal. We'll put it that way. So we'll slice this out. I'm going to come in slightly under. Because as the golden rule applies, we can always take away material, but we can't necessarily put it back on. Now we're getting close. That's a lot better. I definitely like that one. So, get a new piece of tape here to kind of hold these in place. Good. Now we're going to work on this section up top here. I'd like it to go all the way up to this tube and to the bumper bracket. And I'll just have it take along this this radius here. Now notice that as it comes down here, it's going to have to start running along with this contour right here and mate down right at the spot where we cut it out earlier. So a couple pieces here, just a small piece. You can just grab some scraps you have laying around. I'm just going to take it off a piece of this construction paper we already have sliced up. Kind of get an idea here. Kind of stick it up in there. Say, yeah, it's about long enough. Maybe it's not. Who knows? You can fake it. Yeah, somewhere about there is good. What I'm going to do is just hold it tightly into that spot and make sure that on the back side here, this corner or whatever edge of this mates up right there at the point where it left off on the previous design or on the previous cut. I also want to make sure that everything I have up top here is long enough to actually make this transition and fold into that spot right up in this corner where I want it to go. Now if it doesn't work that way, just get a new piece, no big deal. It actually kind of looks like this one's not quite enough, but you know what? We can run with it anyway. I can show you another trick to filling in these extra spots here. So we can always put more on. So I'm going to take my marker here and I'm just going to trace out the backside, just kind of get that general shape going on here. Have this. Kind of hold that in place there. We're going to line on the backside here where it makes this transition. Now this is the line that I just traced, so I'm going to leave a little extra on there so I can actually tape this down and stick these two pieces together. Make sure that we're still sitting right where I want it to. It's a little bit tricky, so I'm going to take a piece of tape here. Now on this bottom side here, this is where I had it mounted before, so I have it marked off. So as soon as I figure, okay, yes, I like it right there, that's about where I want it, I'll stick these two together. Use a couple more pieces of tape here to make sure that they don't move. I'm also going to tape the back side of it. Make sure that it stays in right where I want it to. I'm also going to run up to the top side. I'll put a piece right there to hold it. Nice and easy. So this section right here, I said I wanted to attach it right to this bumper bracket. So make a kind of a loosely fit line. It's actually overshot a little bit, but that's okay. So we can always take more away. So with that there, we can take this off and start trimming again some more. One thing I would like to do though, before I actually take this apart, is I'm going to mark out this face line here. Just right onto my tape, and that's alright. We'll just continue this right here, so that way when I cut this out, we can use the tape as a, as a template, as a guide here. Tape functions the same way the construction paper does, so we'll be good to go there. Make sure I mark that off. Now we can carefully unmask everything here and take it off as one piece. Now I'll start on the back side of where I had it before and just kind of take that straight off. I know that this is going to end up contouring into this one and having this really nice gradual radius here, so let's also continue on our lines here, trim it off. And we'll go right about there. We'll leave that mark on there, that'll be fine. So let's stick it back on once more. And I'm going to add a couple more pieces of tape just to kind of strengthen this area up, and the stronger it is, the more realistic it's going to be as a, say, like a piece of sheet metal, kind of simulate exactly what it is. So let's put a couple more pieces on there, nice and sturdy. We'll go throw it back on the car. So this contour up top here, we still have to make to that, and make sure that we meet up with the contour down below. Actually catch this radius correctly. So we'll just take our marker and we'll trace. So I'm just gonna send it right down the line here. See if we can get that to mate up nicely. See how nice that contour came out there? We'll do the same thing over here, just a little bit. Pretty clean. Let's stick this back on one more time. Alright, so as we look up underneath here, let's see this gap here that we have that we need to fill in here. Now I like to keep it clean. Of course, it's probably never going to be seen, but I like to keep a nice clean transition here to follow along with these tubes that we had before. But you notice we didn't have enough construction paper to actually trim this out here. No big deal. We'll just add some tape. Put a few pieces to cover this. Now of course I'm going to kind of thicken it up here and make sure that I got more than enough material on here to trim away, because don't want to keep on lining it up as many times as possible and kind of create some imperfections and areas in there that you deviations, if you will. So just gonna get as much on here as possible. Now I'll use my marker and kind of create a bit of a face line here. Notice there, right there is where we have our face line, right there is where we have our face line, so we'll just run a nice straight even line. Use this to kind of flatten the tape there. We'll follow it along here, about where we have it. Trace that out. And right here at the bumper bracket is where I'm going to attach it. And I'm also going to kind of follow along with this contour just a little bit more and create just a bit more space here. Make this look a little more natural. Now I'm going to make life a little bit easier here, because one side of this is of course sticky because it's tape, so we'll flip this over and we'll just put some more tape down on it to ensure that it doesn't stick to everything, and that'll also help thicken it up, of course. Simulate more of the construction paper, sheet metal, whatever. Make sure that's nice and firm. Flip it over and let's get to cutting again. Just trim all of this out. Try to make it as even as possible to our face lines. This is a kind of unique radius here. Now this is the side right here where I want to trim it just a little bit more and kind of make it match this radius just a little bit better. Right there. Now when I transfer everything over, I kind of like to leave a little bit of excess materials on here and whatnot. And I always try to find like an even edge to work with. So I'm just going to stick this tape on here and we'll just get to tracing. Hold it as steady as possible. And you know, take your time on it. Because you can, if you bend it around or whatever, if it gets distorted, whatever the case is, it's not gonna you know, effectively serve as a awesome template for you. So take this down here. Just gonna leave a little bit left over on the bottom just in case I want to kind of work it a little bit, trim it out, whatever the case. Let's see what we got here. Not bad at all. I'm going to thicken these lines up just a little bit. Now to cut all this out, we're just going to kind of get strong here, use a combination of tin snips and of course the double cuts. That'll get our rough design cut out. Of course we can go back and chase all this over with the grinder later. No big deal. Always take care of these meat hooks. These things will screw you up. Make sure you don't let them fall on the floor and step on it, because that's almost guaranteed stitches. So let's take our double cuts. There we go. Now the rest of this we can just chase it out with the grinder and we should be really, really close to what we need. Eventually here I'm just going to kind of start forming this. Get it maybe semi-close to where we need it to be. We'll have a chance to form it later. Get it really close. Just kind of throw this in here. Let's see how close we are, where we're sitting. Just kind of form this in the wrong direction. So work that out. There we go. Now we're getting closer here. I'm just going to cut a couple of pony clamps here. Now notice at the bottom here I left a little bit of extra material, and I did that on purpose, of course. So what I'm going to do is trim off a little bit under here, create a line here to cut. It's going to bring it down to about right here. So with my marker, I'll mark right about where that pony clamp is, and we'll say somewhere around here. Bring it across there and taper it down. Kind of want it to match the other side, similar, just to get as much airflow up in here as possible. That's what the goal is here. So with that on there, I can trim that off a little bit. Okay, with that trimmed down and the welder all fired up, get it lined back up again, right about where we want it. And again, we'll use the pony clamps, hold everything in place. On the top here, I'm just going to use a pair of locking pliers to really get this right about where I want it to. It needs to stay in place, of course, as close as possible, but you know, we've got some room to kind of form it up and whatnot, so as long as it's close, that's really all that matters. My other pony clamp here. Looks like I can form it up top there. I can probably get a good weld on here. There's a solid one to hold it in. Looks like we're pretty close to where we need to be there. So I'm going to take my sheet metal hammer and a dolly and I'm just going to start forming this in. Start making sure that we absolutely hit that contour, just like we set it up to do. forming quite nicely. Little by little, when you start working it down. Nice. Okay, now we can start moving down the sides here. We're just going to slowly work our way down here until all of this mates up right where it needs to be. Each time I'm going to encourage this metal to wrap around just a little bit more. Definitely want to try and maintain that uniformity. At the same time here, I'm looking over at the other side, making sure that all of my welds line up and match in the same spot. Leaving a gap down here would make it look kind of tacky, so we're going to do our best to try and really form fit that and get that down inside of there, so that way it fits and mates up a lot nicer. To do that, I'm just going to use the dolly. Some really good hits with a hammer. Now, just like before, start working down little by little with clamps and adding tack welds each time. Just kind of one at a time as I work my way down. That nice down inside of there, nice and tight. We'll use a large clamp here to keep the sheet metal together, attached to the chassis. That's pretty good there. A little persuasion here. Nice. Just like before, we'll work it in. Finish off with the dolly. Perfect. And that's how you use templating to make ducting.